Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So this is a little bit of a deviation from the normal videos that I do here on the channel. I just wanted to talk about something today that I've been kind of wanting to talk about for a little while, and then something happened this morning that really kind of prompted me to sit down and discuss this on camera. Now, if you are brand new here, like I said, my name is Constance, and I have been a food writer, blogger for well over a decade. I launched my very first food blog back around 2006. And I am completely self-taught. I built my own website. I do all of the work, all the photography, all of the writing. It's all me. I'm a one-woman show. So my website is Cosmopolitan Cornbread, same as my YouTube channel. I have over 800 recipes there that I have published. And in addition to my website, I have been a writer for a number of magazines. I've been a newspaper columnist. I've been published all sorts of places. So needless to say, food writing is what I do. It's basically my job. Then a few years ago, I started doing YouTube and, have been growing my channel here. And of course, being a food writer, I share lots of recipes. And I'm a homesteader, so I share homesteading and all of that. But as a food writer, blogger, I have also been a speaker at different events, writing conferences, things like that, where I essentially taught people how to get started blogging. And it wasn't necessarily food blogging, but just blogging in general, being self-published as a writer on your own website. I took people through the process of how to start a website, how to monetize, different ways that you can earn a living or earn some sort of income with your website and things like that. Now, I love being a food writer. I love getting comments and emails from people who've made my recipes or have learned how to can or things like that. I love it. It is incredibly rewarding to do this. However, as with all things, especially on the internet, there's always some downsides. And so basically what I want to talk to you about today, whether you are a food blogger or YouTuber, or if you are thinking about starting one, or frankly, if you just use the websites to get recipes, I want to talk to you about it from our point of view, from the writer's point of view. Some of the negative things that you deal with being a food blogger, food writer, of course, you've got the critics. Lots of food critics that come out and want to critique everything you do, or say you're not doing something the proper technique, or you should chop your onions this way, or you should fold the egg whites that way, or whatever. I didn't go to culinary school. I'm self-taught. I'm a home cook, and I write for the home cook. And so I'm not too worried about the technical terms of things because most people don't use those. But you do always have the critics that you have to deal with. One of the things that a lot of food writers like myself deal with, and it can be annoying at times, is the complaints. And primarily it's the complaints about all of the things on the websites besides the recipe itself. Now, back when I started food writing, you basically, started your website, you posted the recipes, and people would use search engines and they'd find them and they would like them and they would make them. And if you were lucky, they'd leave a comment because comments mean a lot to a food writer. But over time, as Google, the king of all search engines, would repeatedly change its algorithm, they would update the things that they wanted to see on your website if you wanted to get any traffic from them. And one of the things for me that was the biggest frustration, and really it was a frustration for a lot of people, not only the writers but also the readers, is that Google wanted content. They didn't just want the recipe. They wanted a story. They wanted at least 500 to 800 words in addition to the recipe that you were trying to publish. And for me, I wanted my website to basically be an online cookbook. I didn't want to have to tell the stories. Back then, when I first started, I did storytelling, but that wasn't part of the recipes. But now Google wanted all of this stuff. And so that is why food writers began telling the story of great grandma and how this recipe came about, and how their grandma used to make this recipe, and how they grew up eating this, and all the family stories and all that stuff. All of the things that people complain about when they go to a website to get the recipe. All I want is the recipe. Don't tell me the story behind it. Well, if you are like me and you are a food writer and this is what you do for a living, you need the traffic. And in order to get that traffic, you had to make Google happy. And Google wanted the story. But that is why when you go to my website and you go to a recipe page, right at the very top, underneath the title of that recipe, you'll see a little button that says jump to the recipe. It'll take you past all of the photos, it'll take you past any stories that are there or anything like that, and it'll take you straight to the recipe, and it's right there. Now, not every food blogger includes that, but I do for user experience. I want people to get the recipe. That's the whole reason for having it there. That's my whole reason for being a food writer, is sharing the recipes. But people complain, people gripe about it, but they don't understand, you know, they're getting this content for free. These recipes are free, but it is not free for me to make this website. Another thing that people will complain about is advertising. They'll see ads on the website and they hate seeing the ads, they don't want to see it, all of this stuff. But here's the thing. Unless I'm doing sponsored posts, sponsored content, where I work with a brand and that brand pays me to work with them and share stuff about their brand in my posts, advertising is how I make money. Now, in the past, I have worked with brands. I've worked with Dixie Crystal, I've worked with the Beef Council, I've worked with Canon, I've worked with Gallo Family Vineyards. I've got a whole list of different brands that I've worked with in the past doing sponsored posts. Generally, every time I worked with a brand, it was recipe development. I would create a recipe using their brand, and I would promote their brand, and they would pay me to do that. I don't really do that anymore. I've just kind of moved away from it. I don't really like being affiliated with brands too much, just because we live in a crazy world, and I don't want my reputation tied to the reputation of a brand, because nowadays I don't know what they're going to be promoting. And so I don't generally do a whole lot of brand work anymore. Brand ambassadorship, they called it. That's where this whole movement of social media influencers comes from, you know, working with brands and promoting the brands for payment and everything. And I don't like it. I don't like being a salesperson. And so I don't pursue things like that anymore. And so for me, the only way for me to make money with my website is through the ads. And so you're going to see ads on my website. Without those ads, I don't earn a paycheck. And yes, that paycheck matters. What person should be required to work and not be paid for their work, you know? My website doesn't cost you a penny to go to. Doesn't cost a penny. I have a newsletter. Newsletter's free. You can get Cosmopolitan Cornbread in your inbox. Several times a week, I'll send out a mailing with whatever is new on the website, new on the channel, a recipe you might like. During garden season, there might be a gardening article, things like that. It's all free for you to use, but it is not free for me to create. It costs a lot of money to run the website, to host the website. The theme that I have for my website, which makes it look the way it does, costs money. The plugin that you use to click the print button and print out the recipe costs money. All of these things have licensing that I have to pay for every single year or every single month. The service that I use to create the free-to-you email newsletter costs me money every month. So people don't realize that there is a cost to being a food blogger. A pretty significant cost. And like everything else, the cost of those things tends to go up every single year. And it's not just those aspects, but then, you know, I do all of my own photography, all my videography. My photo editing software costs money, and it's an annual subscription. My video software costs money, an annual subscription. Let's talk about photography equipment. It is not inexpensive, and from time to time it does have to be replaced. As a matter of fact, this week I had to very painfully fork out over $1,000, closer to $2,000 for a new photography camera, because the one that I've been using for years, doing all of my photography, broke. And I had to fork out the money for a new camera. So when you go to cosmopolitancornbread.com and you see ads inserted in between paragraphs or over on the sidebar or something like that, just understand that without those ads, I couldn't have that website. I could not afford to run the website, take the photos, do all of the editing, or anything like that. Cosmopolitan Cornbread would not exist if it wasn't for those ads. Now, I do know that sometimes the ads can be annoying. If you are someone like me and I am affiliated with an ad network, I don't use Google for my ads. I have a network and it pays me much better than Google would. However, by being affiliated with them, they kind of control where the ads are placed. They control what ads are on the website. Now, there are categories that I can say, I don't want these on my website. For instance, I don't want political ads on my site. And so you should never see any political ads because I disabled that in my ad network profile. I said, you know, don't ever post these or sexual content or things like that. So you should never see anything like that. But other than that, I don't have control over those ads. So the complaints and things like that, you know, that's just something that you deal with as a food writer, as a food blogger or vlogger. You learn to develop a pretty thick skin and not let things like that bother you, because people generally don't know the backside. They don't know how much it costs to run a website, and they don't appreciate, you know, all of the work and hours and blood, sweat, and tears that goes into creating a beautiful website or anything like that. They don't appreciate it. They just like the fact that they get something for free. But one of the things that is really, really difficult for any writer, and for myself as a food writer, is theft. There's been instances where I have found my recipe on someone else's website. They copy and pasted it, took my photos and things like that. That's theft. It's copyright infringement because those are my photos. Those are my words. All of that was off of my website. It's mine. It's protected. And generally, if something like that happens, I can just contact the person and say, hey, you did not have permission to use this, you need to take it down. And in the past, when I've had things like that happen, they have quickly removed it. If they hadn't, I could go after their website host, and their website host could shut them down, and to take a step further, I could sue them for copyright infringement. Most of the time, it was people just creating a website and just getting content from all over the place to use as their own and get their own ad revenue. Another type of theft is people stealing your recipes and publishing them in a cookbook. There is a website, an app that a lot of people use to save recipes. I don't know if it's still around, but it was called Copy Me That. This website was, you know, as a recipe user, it may have seemed really handy because you would have an app and you would have all your recipes right here in the palm of your hand that you wanted to make. However, what was happening is that that Copy Me That app would take the recipe from someone's website, put it in the app, and now the person who worked and developed that recipe lost their views of their page. And the views are what make their money. That's their income. It's stealing their work. And not only were they putting all of the recipes in the app, but then that website and / app started printing cookbooks. And they were printing cookbooks, making money from the content that had been taken from other people's websites. And I mentioned that one because it was such a huge issue. And again, I don't know if it's still around. Hopefully it's not, or hopefully they've changed their method of doing things so that they're not stealing people's content, stealing people's work. But I mean, just this morning, I had a friend reach out to me and told me about a brand, a food brand. They make canning supplies and things like that, that had decided to come out with a canning cookbook. And in this canning cookbook were countless recipes that were taken from other people's websites and printed in their cookbook so that they could make money. And, you know, here's the thing. Sometimes these brands will say, oh, well, I'm giving them credit. And, you know, yes, I took their photos and I took their recipe, but I'm giving them credit in the cookbook. It's still theft. It's still theft. Unless you got permission prior to putting their content in your cookbook, it is copyright infringement. There's a brand that I used to work with. It's actually one of the last brands that I worked with, doing any sort of advertising type of thing. I noticed one day that they were taking people's videos and using them as ads. And one of the videos that they took belonged to a friend of mine. And I reached out to her. I'm like, hey, did you know that they were doing this? Did you give them permission to do this? And she said, I had no idea. No, I didn't give them permission. It's theft. And at that point, I ended my business relationship with that brand, and I have not promoted them since. Yes, there's still a few photos with their brand on my website. I'm in the process of redoing all of those photos because I don't want anything to do with them. I will not promote unethical brands, unethical people. And that goes back to my whole thing of why I don't want to do brand work anymore. Now, if there's something that I sincerely use, I sincerely like, and I can get a discount code for you guys, absolutely, I will get a discount code for you. But it needs to be something that I sincerely actually use. I'm not going to be a brand ambassador. I am not going to promote another brand for money. I'm just not going to do it because to me, that is my character and my reputation, and I'm protecting that. I don't speak for anybody else. I don't speak for anyone else who chooses to work with brands. That's up to them. And there's a lot, and please hear me, I'm not saying that all companies, all brands are bad. There are wonderful companies out there. There are very ethical companies out there. But you know, going forward, I will be extremely careful when it comes to having any sort of business relationship with any of them. I would definitely be doing my homework before even considering it. So all of that to say, when you go to a food website and you're looking for a recipe and you see the ads or you see the stories and you see all that stuff and all you wanted was the recipe, just understand that if that person is somebody like me, all we wanted to do was give you the recipe too. But it costs money. It is our income. This is what we do for a living. And so I'm just asking for you to show people a little bit of grace and just appreciate how much work and time and energy and resources go into making all of the content that you get absolutely for free, whether it is on a food website or if it's here on YouTube. I mean, I can't even tell you how many cameras I have broke over the years filming homesteading and gardening videos and things like that. I mean, one day I ran over one with my truck because I had set it in the shade because it was 100 degrees outside and I didn't want my camera overheating, and I set it down in the shade underneath the truck and then totally forgot it was under there because I was busy working on something and drove right over it. So things happen, and you know, we do the best that we can to provide all of these things that you get to enjoy for free. And so I just hope that you appreciate everything that goes into it, and maybe in the future you think about that and go, wow, this is a lot of work, and I'm glad I don't have to pay a penny for it. So don't be hating on the food bloggers for writing the stories or having the ads or anything like that, because it's the world we live in and we couldn't do it without them. So, but in any case, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I think I have vented long enough, and if you've stuck with me this long, I appreciate it. So that is it for today. Thanks for joining me here in the pantry for a little bit of a detour from the normal content. And with the next video, we'll be getting back to the homesteading, the home cooking, and faith. I'm Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I'll talk to y'all next time.